Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more philosophy. Today we're diving back into the works of Mr. Georg Hegel. This is the science of logic. We are reading aloud and not really discussing as we go along the various points brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above, in the box down below, along with the original source material and the link for my book, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. With that being said, we are going to dive in and continue our exploration of the science of logic with Book 2, the Doctrine of Essence. Essence. The truth of being is essence. Being is the immediate. Since the goal of knowledge is the truth, what being is in and for itself, knowledge does not stop at the immediate and its determinations, but penetrates beyond it, on the presupposition that behind this being there still is something other than being itself, and that this background constitutes the truth of being. This cognition is a mediated knowledge, for it is not to be found with and in essence immediately, but starts off from an other, from being, and has a prior way to make, the way that leads over and beyond being, or that rather penetrates into it. Only inasmuch as knowledge recollects itself into itself out of immediate being does it find essence through this mediation. The German language has kept essence, Wesen, and the past participle, gewesen, of the verb to be, sein, for essence is past, but timelessly past, being. When this movement is represented as a pathway of knowledge, this beginning with being and the subsequent advance which sublates being and arrives at essence as a mediated term appears to be an activity of cognition external to being and indifferent to its nature. But this course is the movement of being itself, that it is being's nature to recollect itself, and that it becomes essence by virtue of this interiorizing. This has been displayed in being itself. If, therefore, the Absolute was at first determined as being, now it is determined as essence. Cognition cannot, in general, stop at the manifold of existence, but neither can it stop at being, pure being. Immediately, one is forced to the reflection that this pure being, this negation of everything finite, presupposes a recollection and a movement which has distilled immediate existence into pure being. Being thus comes to be determined as essence, as a being in which everything is determined and finite is negated. So it is simple unity, void of determination, from which the determinate has been removed in an external manner. To this unity, the determinate was itself something external, and after this removal, it still remains opposite to it. For it has not been sublated in itself, but relatively only with reference to this unity. We already noted above that if pure essence is defined as the sum total of all realities, these realities are equally subject to the nature of determinateness. The abstractive reflection and their sum total is reduced to empty simplicity. Thus defined, essence is only a product, an artifact. External reflection, which is abstraction, only lifts the determinacies of being out of what is left over as an essence and only deposits them, as it were, somewhere else, letting them exist as before. In this way, however, essence is neither in itself nor for itself. It is by virtue of another. Through external abstractive reflection, and it is for another, namely for abstraction and in general for the existent which still remains opposite to it. In its determination, therefore, it is a dead and empty absence of determinateness. As it has come to be here, however, essence is what it is, not through a negativity foreign to it, but through one which is its own, the infinite movement of being. It is being in and for itself, absolute in itselfness. Since it is indifferent to every determinateness of being, otherness and reference to other have been sublated. But neither is it only in this in itselfness, as merely being in itself, it would be only the abstraction of pure essence. But it is being for itself just as essentially. It is itself this negativity, the self-sublation of otherness and of determinateness. Essence, as the complete turning back of being into itself, is thus at first the indeterminate essence. The determinacies of it, of being, are sublated in it. It holds them in itself, but without their being posited in it. Absolute essence, in this simple unity with itself, has no existence, but it must pass over into existence, for it is being in and for itself. That is to say, it differentiates the determination which it holds in itself, and since it is the repelling of itself from itself, or indifference towards itself, negative self-reference, it thereby posits itself over against itself and is infinite being for itself, only in so far as in thus differentiating itself from itself, it is in unity with itself. This determining is thus of another nature than the determining in the sphere of being, and the determinations of essence have another character than the determinations of being. Essence is the absolute unity of being in itself and being for itself. Consequently, its determining remains inside this unity. It is neither a becoming nor a passing over, just as the determinations themselves are neither an other, as other, nor references to some other. They are self-subsisting, but, as such, at the same time conjoined in the unity of essence. Since essence is at first simple negativity, in order to give self-existence and then being for itself, it must now posit in its sphere the determinateness which it contains in principle only in itself. Essence is in the whole what quality was in the sphere of being, absolute indifference with respect to limit. Quantity is instead this indifference in immediate determination, limit being in it an immediate external determinateness. Quantity passes over into quantum. The external limit is necessary to it and exists in it. In essence, by contrast, the determinateness does not exist. It is posited only by the essence itself, not free, but only with a reference to the unity of the essence. The negativity of essence is reflection, and the determinations are reflected, posited by the essence itself in which they remain as sublated. All right, let's talk about it for just a second. All right. We're going to bring out the lighter again, right? We talk about the lighter all the time. We started off with a green lighter, but now we don't have that anymore. The lighter is something that catches fire. Right? It starts a fire, whether it is a butane lighter, a propane lighter, an acetyl butane lighter, or whatever it happens to be. It is something that catches something else on fire. Now, this lighter for itself exists. It is a lighter, but it is a differentiated lighter. This lighter has an American statue of liberty on it, surrounded by the American flag. That is different than this lighter. This lighter has racetrack on it, right? And camouflage. These are differentiated by their individual characteristics. This is differentiated by the flag and the statue. This is differentiated by racetrack and camouflage. But both of them start fires, right? So the essence of the lighter is that they light fire. Now, when the quality is that they start fires. The quantity or the quantum is the butane actually allowing them to start fires. And when the quantum or the quantity of fires is exhausted, it will no longer start a fire, and then the essence is no longer lighter. The lighter does not define itself. The definition for the lighter comes from us, the same as the definition for other things. They don't define themselves, they are defined by. I am a human, but I am a differentiated human from you. I stand 5 foot 10 inches tall, 190 pounds. I'm left-handed. I've got heterogeneous, homogeneous eyes, heterogeneous eyes. I have eyes of 2 different colors. I have various quanta by which I am differentiated, but the quality is that I am human. That is what is being said here, right? It is the negative reflexes that differentiate from the essence into the individual. In essence, I am human, but you determine that I am different from you by various physical characteristics or intellectual capacity or whatever quality that you choose to quantify into the differentiation that is me. That is basically what is being said here, restated in a slightly different way. You exist in your essence. You are differentiated by your qualities and the quantum, which is the amount of differences, kind of, right? The amount of times you can light the lighter defines the quantum of the lighter. Once the quantum is no longer there, and if like I can refill the racetrack lighter, I cannot refill the other one. And so this one will still be a lighter. I will just have to refill it. This one is no longer a lighter. It no longer has the capacity to do that which it has the essence for. It is basically dead. Okay, back to the text. I think that was pretty clear for what we were talking about so far. Essence stands between being and concept. It makes up their middle. It's movement constituting the transition of being into the concept, right? So the concept is that it is a lighter, but once we make the lighter, it is being the essence of a lighter. Right? The movement of creating the lighter constitutes the transition of being into concept. Essence is being in and for itself, but it is this in the determination of being in itself. For its general determination is that it emerges from being, or that it is the first negation of being. Its movement consists in positing negation or determination in being, thereby giving itself existence, and becoming as infinite being for itself what it is in itself. It thus gives itself its existence, which is equal to its being in itself, and becomes concept. For the concept is the absolute as it is absolutely, or in and for itself in its existence. But the existence which essence gives to itself is not yet existence as it is in and for itself, but as essence gives it to itself, or as posited, and hence still distinct from the existence of the concept. First, essence shines within itself, or is reflection. Second, it appears. Third, it reveals itself. In the course of its movement, it posits itself in the following determinations. As simple essence, existing in itself, remaining in itself in its determinations. 2. As emerging into existence, or according to its concrete existence and appearance. 3. An essence which is one with its appearance as actuality. Now we're going to do a couple of different parts to this particular one. Section 1. Essence as reflection within. Essence issues from being, hence it is not immediately in and for itself, but is a result of that movement. Or, since essence is taken at first as something immediate, it is a determinate existence to which another stands opposed. It is only essential existence as against the unessential. But essence is being which has been sublated in and for itself. What stands over against it is only shine. The shine, however, is essence's own positing. First, Essence is reflection. Reflection determines itself. Its determinations are a positiveness, which is immanent reflection at the same time. Second, these reflective determinations, or essentialities, are to be considered. Third, as the reflection of its immanent determining, essence turns into foundation and passes over into concrete existence and appearance. Chapter 1. Shine. As it issues from being, essence seems to stand over against it. This immediate being is, first, the unessential, but, second, it is more than just the unessential. It is being void of essence. It is shine. Third, this shine is not something external, something other than essence, but is essence's own shining. The shining of essence within it is reflection. A. The essential and the unessential. Essence is sublated being. It is simple equality with itself, but is such as the negation of the sphere of being in general. And so it has immediacy over against it as something from which it has come to be, but which has preserved and maintained itself in this sublating. Essence itself is in this determination an existent, immediate essence, and with reference to it being is only something negative, nothing in and for itself. Essence, therefore, is a determined negation. Being and essence relate to each other in this fashion as against others in general, which are mutually indifferent, for each has a being, an immediacy, and according to this being they stand in equal value. Now, this determined negation, right, is that this can start fires, and so once it cannot start fires, that negation is gone. But, as contrasted with essence, being is at the same time the unessential. As against essence, that would be the plastic and the wrap. It has the determination of something sublated. And insofar as it thus relates to essence as an other only in general, essence itself is not essence proper, but is just another existence, the essential. The distinction of essential and unessential has made essence relapse into the sphere of existence. For, as essence is at first, it is determined with respect to being as an existent and therefore as an other. The sphere of existence is thus laid out as foundation, and that in this sphere, being is being in and for itself, is a further determination external to existence, just as, contrariwise, essence is indeed being in and for itself, but only over against an other, in a determinate respect. Consequently, inasmuch as essential and unessential aspects are distinguished in an existence from each other, this distinguishing is an external positing, a taking apart that leaves the existence itself untouched. It is a separation which falls on the side of a third, and leaves undetermined what belongs to the essential and what belongs to the unessential. It is dependent on some external standpoint or consideration, and the same content can therefore sometimes be considered as essential, sometimes as unessential. Right? The essential part is that it starts a fire, not that it is wrapped in a flag and a statue or wrapped in racetrack and camo. Those are unessential. The essential part is the fire. On closer consideration, essence becomes only essential as contrasted with an unessential because essence is only taken, is as sublated being or existence. In this fashion, essence is only the first negation, or the negation, which is determinateness. It is a lighter, through which being becomes only existence, or existence only an other. But essence is the absolute negativity of being. It is being itself, but not being determined only as another. It is rather It is being, rather, that has sublated itself both as immediate being and as immediate negation, as the negation which is affected by an otherness. Being, or existence, therefore, does not persist except as what essence is, and the immediate which still differs from essence is not just an unessential existence, but an immediate, which is null in and for itself. It is only a non-essence, shine. B. Shine. 1. Being is shine. The being of shine consists solely in the sublatedness of being, in being's nothingness. This nothingness, it has an essence, and apart from its nothingness, apart from essence, it does not exist. It is the negative posited as negative. Shine is all that remains of the sphere of being, but it still seems to have an immediate side which is independent of essence and to be, in general, an other of essence. Other entails in general the two moments of existence and non-existence. Since the unessential no longer has a being, what is left to it of otherness is only the pure moment of non-existence. Shine is this immediate non-existence, a non-existence in the determinateness of being, so that it has existence only with reference to another, in its non-existence. It is the non-self-subsistent which exists only in its negation. What is left over to it is thus only the pure determinateness of immediacy. It is as reflected immediacy, that is, one which is only by virtue of the mediation of its negation, and which, over against this mediation, is nothing except the empty determination of the immediacy of non-existence. Shine. The phenomena of skepticism and also the appearance of idealism is thus this immediacy, which is not a something nor a thing in general, not an indifferent being that would exist apart from its determinateness and connection with the subject. Skepticism did not permit itself to say it is, and the more recent idealism did not permit itself to regard cognitions as a knowledge of the thing in itself. The shine of the former was supposedly absolutely not to have the foundation of a being. The thing in itself was not supposed to enter into these cognitions, but at the same time, skepticism allowed a manifold of determinations for its shine. Or, rather, the latter turned out to have the full richness of the world for its content. Likewise, for the appearance of idealism, it encompassed the whole range of these manifold determinacies. So the shine of skepticism and the appearance of idealism do immediately have a manifold of determination. This content, therefore, might well have no being as foundation, no thing or thing in itself. For itself, it remains as it is. It is simply transposed from being into shine, so that the latter has within itself those manifold determinacies that exist immediately, each and other to the other. The shine is thus itself something immediately determined. It can have this or that content, but whatever content it has not posited it, but possesses it immediately. Idealism, whether Leibnizian, Kantian, Fichtean, or in any other form, has not gone farther than skepticism in this. It has not advanced beyond being as determinateness. Skepticism lets the content of its shine be given to it. The shine exists for it immediately, whatever content it might have. The Leibnizian monad develops its representations from itself, but is not their generating and controlling force. They rise up in it as a froth, indifferent, immediately present to each other and to the monad as well. Likewise, Kant's appearance is a given content of perception that presupposes affections, determinations of the subject which are immediate to each other and to the subject. As for the infinite obstacle of Fichte idealism, it might well be that it has no thing in itself for foundation, so that it becomes a determinateness purely within the I, But this determinateness that the I makes its own, sublating its externality, is to the I, at the same time, an immediate determinateness. The limitation of the I, which the latter may transcend, but which contains a side of indifference, and, on account of this indifference, although it internal to the I, it entails the immediate non-being of it. So, the concept of the lighter is that it lights, right? That would be the immediate determination that is made, right? It is a lighter. That is the shine. This thing performs this function. Once you have differentiated into a plastic vessel filled with butane with a flint and an iron wheel, which produces a spark and thereby produces a fire, you are taking it from the shine, which is the idealized concept of it, and you're turning it into the manifested, the limited, the defined, right? And so the concept of the lighter is a thing which lights fires. Once you have made a lighter, this takes its determination from me seeing this lighter as a lighter, right? And so to me, this is the epitomization of a lighter. It lights fires. But it can be varied. It can look like this one, or it can look like this one. This is a whole different type of lighter. It runs off of butane as well, but it is a torch. It does it in a slightly different way. Those are all lighters in concept. They are all lighters in the shine. But in the differentiation, to me, the I, it becomes something different, right? It is the lighter with the statue on it. It is the lighter with racetrack on it, right? The differentiation doesn't take away from the essence that it is. The essence that it is the shine. 2. Shine thus contains an immediate presupposition, an independent side vis-a-vis essence. But the task, inasmuch as this shine is distinct from essence, is not to demonstrate that it sublates itself and returns into essence. For, being as returned into essence in its totality, shine is the null as such. The task is to demonstrate that the determinations which distinguish it from essence are the determinations of essence itself. Further, that this determinateness of essence, which shine is sublated in essence itself. What constitutes the shine is the immediacy of non-being. This non-being, however, is nothing else than the negativity of essence within essence itself. In essence, being is non-being. Its inherent nothingness is the negative nature of essence itself. But the immediacy or indifference which this non-being contains is essence's own absolute in itself. The negativity of essence is its self-equality or its simple immediacy and indifference. Being has preserved itself in essence inasmuch as this latter, in its infinite negativity, has this equality with itself. It is through this that essence is itself being. The immediacy that the determinateness has in shine against essence is thus none other than the essence's own immediacy, though not the immediacy of an existent, but rather the absolutely mediated or reflective immediacy which is shine, being. Not as being, but only as the determinateness of being, as against mediation, being as moment. These two moments, nothingness but as subsisting, and being but as a moment, or again, negativity existing in itself and reflected immediacy, these two moments that are the moments of shine are thus the moments of essence itself. It is not that there is a shine of being in essence, or a shine of essence in being. The shine in the essence is not the shine of another, but is rather shine as such, the shine of essence itself. Shine is essence itself, is the determinateness of being. essence has as shine, because it is determined within itself and is therefore distinguished from its absolute unity. But this determinateness is, as determinateness, just as absolutely sublated in it. For essence is what stands on its own. It exists as self-mediating through negation, which it itself is. It is, therefore, the identical unit of absolute negativity and immediacy. The negativity is negativity in itself. It is its reference to itself and thus immediacy in itself. But it is negative reference to itself, a self-repelling negating. Thus, the immediacy existing in itself is the negative or the determinate over against the negativity. But this determinateness is itself absolute negativity, and this determining, which as determining immediately sublates itself, is a turning back into itself. Shine is the negative which has a being, but in another, in its negation. It is a non-self-subsisting being which is sublated within and null. And so it is the negative which returns into itself, the non-subsistent as such, internally non-subsistent. This reference of the negative, or the non-subsistent, to itself is the immediacy of this non-subsistent. It is an other than it. It is its determinateness over against it, or the negation over against the negative. But this negation, which stands over against the negative, is negativity as referring solely to itself, the absolute sublation of the determinateness itself. The determinateness that shine is, in essence, is, therefore, infinite determinateness. It is only the negative which coincides with itself, and hence a determinateness that, as determinateness, is self-subsistence and not determined. Contrariwise, the self-subsistence, as self-referring immediacy, equally is just determinateness and moment. Negativity solely referring to itself. This negativity, which is identical with immediacy, and thus the immediacy, which is identical with negativity, is essence. Shine is, therefore, essence itself, but essence in a determinateness, in such a way, however, that the determinateness is only a moment, and the essence is the shining of itself within itself. In the sphere of being, non-being arises over against being, each equally and immediate, and the truth of both is becoming. In the sphere of essence, we have the contrast, first, of essence and the non-essential, then of essence and shine. The non-essential and the shine being both the leftover of being. But these two, and no less the distinction of essence from them, consists solely in this, that essence is taken at first as an immediate, not as it is in itself, namely as an immediacy, which is immediacy as pure mediacy, or absolute negativity. The first immediacy is thus only the determinateness of immediacy. The sublating of this determinateness of essence consists, therefore, in nothing further than showing that the unessential is only shine, and that essence, rather, contains this shine within itself. For essence is an infinite, self-contained movement, which determines its immediacy as negativity, and its negativity as immediacy, and is thus the shining of itself within itself. In this, in its self-movement, essence is reflection. See, reflection. Shine is the same as what reflection is, but the reflection as immediate. For this shine, which is internalized and therefore alienated from its immediacy, the German has a word from an alien language, reflexion. Essence is reflection, the movement of becoming and transition that remains within itself, wherein that which is distinguished is determined simply and solely as the negative in itself and shine, as shine, and the becoming of being, and the becoming of being. It is being which lies at the foundation of determinateness, and determinateness is reference to another. Reflective movement is by contrast the other as negation in itself, a negation which has being only as self-referring. Or, since this self-referring is precisely this negating of negation, what we have is negation as negation. Negation that has its being in its being negated, as shine. Here, therefore, the other is not being with negation or limit, but negation with negation. But the first over against this other, the immediate or being, is only this self-equality itself of negation, the negated negation, the absolute negativity. This self-equality or immediacy, therefore, is not a first from which the beginnings is made and which would pass over into its negation, nor is there an existent substrate which would go through the moves of reflection. Immediacy is rather just this movement itself. In essence, therefore, the becoming, the reflective moment of essence, is the movement from nothing to nothing and thereby back to itself. Transition, or becoming, sublates itself in its transition. The other, which comes to be in this transition, is not the non-being of a being, but the nothingness of a nothingness. And this, to be the negation of nothingness, constitutes being. Being is only as the movement of nothingness to nothingness. And so is essence. So it is essence. And this essence does not have this movement in itself, but the movement is rather the absolute shine itself, the pure negativity, which has nothing outside it and which it would negate, but which rather negates only its negative, the negative which is only in this negating. This pure, absolute reflection, which is the movement from nothing to nothing, further determines itself. It is, first, positing reflection. Second, it takes as its starting point the presupposed immediate, and then it is external reflection. Third, it sublates, however, this presupposition, and because it is in the sublating of the presupposition, it presupposes at the same time it is determining reflection. 1. Positing reflection. Shine is a nothingness or a lack of essence. But a nothingness or that which is void of essence does not have its being in another in which it shines, but its being is its own equality with itself. This conversion of the negative with itself has been determined as the absolute reflection of essence. This self-referring negativity is therefore the negating of itself. It is thus just as much sublated negativity as is negativity. Or again, it is itself the negative and the simple equality with itself or immediacy. It consists, therefore, in being itself and not being itself, and the two in one unity. Reflection is at first the movement of the nothing to the nothing, and thus negation coinciding with itself. This self-coinciding is, in general, simple equality with itself, immediacy. But this falling together is not the transition of negation into equality as into being other than it. Reflection is transition, rather, as the sublating of transition. For it is the immediate falling together of the negative with itself. And so, this coinciding is, first, self-equality or immediacy, but second, this immediacy is the self-equality of the negative, and hence self-negating equality. Immediacy, which is in itself the negative of itself, Its being is to be what it is not. The self-reference of the negative is therefore its turning back into itself. It is immediacy as the sublating of the negative, but immediacy simply and solely as this reference, or as turning back from a one, and hence as self-sublating immediacy. This is positiveness, immediacy purely as determinateness, or as self-reflecting. This immediacy, which is only as the turning back of the negative into itself, is the immediacy which constitutes the determinateness of shine, and from which the previous reflective movement seems to begin. But, far from being able to begin with this immediacy, the latter, first, is rather as the turning back or as the reflection itself. Reflection is, therefore, the movement which, since it is the turning back, only in this turning is that which starts out or returns. It is a positing, inasmuch as it is immediacy as a turning back, which is to say, there is not an other beforehand, one either from which or to which it would turn back. It is, therefore, only as a turning back or as a negative of itself. But further, this immediacy is sublated negation and sublated return into itself. Reflection, as the sublating of the negative, is the sublating of its other, of the immediacy. Because it is thus immediacy as a turning back, the coinciding of the negative with itself, it is equally the negation of the negative as negative, and so it is presupposing. Or, immediacy is as a turning back of the negative of itself, just this, not to be an immediacy. But reflection is the sublating of the negative of itself, coincidence with itself. It therefore sublates its positing, and inasmuch as it is in its positing, the sublating of positing, it is presupposing. In presupposing, reflection determines the turning back into itself as the negative of itself, as that of which essence is the sublating. It is its relating to itself, but to itself as to the negative of itself. Only so it is negativity which abides with itself, self-referring negativity. Immediacy comes on the scene simply and solely as the turning back and is that negative which is the semblance of a beginning, the beginning which the return negates. The turning back of essence is, therefore, its self-repulsion, or inner-directed reflection is essentially the presupposing of that from which the reflection is the turning back. It is only by virtue of the sublating, of its equality with itself, that essence is equality with itself. Essence presupposes itself, and the sublating of this presupposing is essence itself. Contrariwise, this sublating of its presupposition is the presupposition itself. Reflection thus finds an immediate before it, which it transcends, and from which it is the turning back. But this turning back is only the presupposing of what was anecdotally found, antecedently found. This antecedent comes to be only by being left behind. Its immediacy is sublated immediacy. This sublated immediacy is, contrariwise, the turning back into itself, essence that arrives at itself, simple being equal to itself. This arriving at itself is thus the sublating of itself and self-repelling, presupposing reflection. At its repelling of itself from itself is the arriving at itself. It follows from these considerations that the movement of reflection is to be taken as an absolute internal counter-repelling. For the presupposition of the turning back into itself, that from which essence arises, essence being only as this coming back, is only in the turning back itself, transcending the immediate from which reflection begins, occurs rather only through the transcending, and the transcending of the immediate is the arriving at the immediate. The movement, as forward movement, turns immediately around into itself, and so is only a self-movement. A movement which comes from itself insofar as the positing reflection is presupposing reflection, yet as presupposing reflection is simply positing reflection. Thus is reflection itself and its non-being, and only is itself by being the negative of itself. For only in this way is the sublating of the negative at the same time a coinciding with itself. The immediacy which reflection, as a process of sublating, presupposes for itself is simply and solely a positiveness. Something in itself sublated, which is not diverse from reflection's turning back into itself, but is itself only this turning back. It is at the same time determined as a negative, as immediately in opposition to something, and hence to an other. And so is reflection determined according to this determinateness, because reflection has a presupposition and takes a start from the immediate as its other. It is external reflection. Okay, so you have the lighter, right? Now, the essence of the lighter, the shine, is that it is a lighter, that it lights fires. But once you take it and create it, it is no longer the shine. It is defined, right? It is posited as a being, as opposed to the idealized concept of a lighter, just the thing that lights fires. Every single physical characteristic of the lighter is sublating itself from the essence of a lighter, but it contains within the being of the lighter the ability to light a fire, which is the essence of a lighter, and therefore it is a reflection of the essence. It is something which is, as opposed to the idealized of. The idealized of is going to be the shine. The actual lighter is the posited reflection of the idealized concept of the lighter. I think that's pretty close to accurate. 2. External reflection. Reflection, as absolute reflection, is essence shining within, essence that posits only shine, only positiveness for its presupposition, and as presupposing reflection, it is immediately only positing reflection. But external or real reflection presupposes itself as sublated, as the negative of itself. In this determination, it is doubled. At one time, it is what is presupposed, or the reflection into which it is the immediate. At another time, it is as the reflection negatively reflecting to itself, referring to itself. It refers itself to itself as to that its non-being. External reflection, thus, presupposes a being, at first not in the sense that its immediacy is only positedness or moment, but in the sense, rather, that this immediacy refers to itself and the determinateness as only as moment. Reflection refers to its presupposition in such a way that the latter is its negative, but this negative is thereby sublated as negative. Reflection, in positing, immediately sublates its positing, and so it has an immediate presupposition. It therefore finds this presupposition before it as something from which it starts and from which it only makes its way back into itself, negating it as its negative. But that this presupposition is a negative or a positiveness is not its concern. The determinateness belongs only to positing reflection, whereas in the presupposing positiveness it is only as sublated. What external reflection determines and posits in the immediate are determinations which, to that extent, are external to it. In the sphere of being, external reflection was the infinite. The finite stands as the first. As the real from which the beginning is made, as from a foundation that abides, whereas the infinite is the reflection into itself, standing over against it. This external reflection is the syllogism in which the two extremes are the immediate and the reflection into itself. The middle term is the reference connecting the two, the determinate immediate, so that one part of this connecting reference, the immediate, falls to one extreme alone, and the other, the determinateness or the negation, only to the other extreme. But if one takes a closer look at what the external reflection does, it turns out that it is, secondly, the positing of the immediate, an immediate which thus becomes the negative or the determined. But it is immediately also the sublating of this positing, for it presupposes the immediate. In negating, it is the negating of its negating. But thereby it immediately is equally a positing, the sublating of the immediate, which is its negative, and this negative, from which it seemed to begin as from something alien, only is in this its beginning. In this way, the immediate is not only implicitly in itself, that is, for us or in external reflection, the same as what reflection is, but is posited as being the same. For the immediate is determined by reflection as the negative of the latter or as the other of it, but it is reflection itself which negates this determining. So the two lighters are both lighters to us. The externality of reflection, vis-a-vis the immediate, is consequently sublated. Its self-negating position, positing, is its coinciding with its negative, with the immediate, and this coinciding is the immediacy of essence itself. It thus transpires that an external reflection is not external, but is just as much the immanent reflection of immediacy itself, or that the result of positing reflection is essence existing in and for itself. External reflection is thus determining reflection. Remark. Reflection is usually taken in a subjective sense as the movement of judgment which transcends an immediately given representation and seeks more universal determinations for it, or compares it with such determinations. Kant opposes reflective and determining judgment, critique of judgment. He defines judgment in general as the faculty of thinking the particular as contained under the universal. If the universal, the rule, the principle, the law is given, then the judgment which subsumes the particular under it is determining. But if what is given is only a particular, for which it is up to the judgment to find the universal, then the judgment is reflecting. So, up until the point that you know that the lighter actually lights fires, it is simply a piece of plastic. It is an amalgamation of several components, but it is not determined as being a lighter. But once you determine that it can light a fire, then it is indeed a lighter. But if what is given is only a particular, for which it is up to the judgment to find the universal, right? So the particular is this particular shape, this particular color, this particular orientation, these particular components. The universal that you have to find inside it to make the judgment of is that it does indeed light fires. And then the judgment, yes, it does light fires, labels it as a lighter. Here, too, reflection is therefore a matter of rising above the immediate to the universal. Reflection is determining the essential, the essence. It lights fires. On the one hand, the immediate is determined as particular only by being thus referred to its universal. For itself, it is only a singular or an immediate existent. But on the other hand, that which is to which it is referred, its universal, its rule, principle, law, is, in general, that which is reflected into itself, which refers itself to itself, is the essence or the essential. But at issue here is neither the reflection of consciousness nor the more specific reflection of the understanding that has the particular and the universal for its determinations, but reflection in general. It is clear that the reflection to which Kant assigns the search of the universal for a given particular is likewise only an external reflection which applies itself to the immediate as to something given. But the concept of absolute reflection, too, is implicit in it. For the universal, the principle or the rule and law, to which reflection rises in it, its process of determination, is taken to be the essence of immediate from which the reflection began. The immediate, therefore, to be a nothingness which is posited in its true being only by the turning back of the reflection from it, by the determining of reflection. Therefore, what reflection does to the immediate and the determinations that derive from it is not anything external to it, but is rather its true being. External reflection was also meant whenever reflection, and, as it was for a while the fashion in a recent philosophy, was accused of all evil, and it and its ways of determining were regarded as the polar opposite, nay, the ancestral enemy of true philosophical method. In fact, also, thought reflection, insofar as it operates externally, proceeds from something immediately given that is alien to it, and considers itself to be a merely formal operation that receives its material content from outside and of itself only as a movement conditioned by the content. Further, as the examination of determining reflection will now bear out, reflective determinations are of a different kind than the merely immediate determinations of a being. These last are more readily admitted to be transient, merely relative, confined to the reference to another. The reflective determinations have instead the form of a being which is in and for itself. They claim the status, therefore, of essential determinations, and, instead of passing over into their opposites, they appear rather as absolute, free, and mutually indifferent. They stubbornly resist, therefore, their movement. Their being is the self-identity which they possess in their determinateness, and, by virtue of it, though indeed presupposing each other, in this referring to the other, they never nonetheless maintain themselves as totally separate. 3. Determining reflection. Determining reflection is in general the unity of positing and external reflection. This is now to be examined more closely. 1. External reflection begins from immediate being, positing reflection from nothing. In its determining, external reflection posits another in the place of the sublated being, but this other is essence. The positing does not posit its determination in the place of another. It has no presupposition, but precisely for this reason it is not complete as determining reflection. The determination which it posits is consequently only a posited. This is an immediate, not, however, as equal to itself, but as self-negating. In its connection with the turning back into itself is absolute. It is only in the reflection into itself, but is not this reflection itself. The posited is therefore an other, but in such a manner that the self-equality of reflection is retained. For the posited is only as sublated as reference to the turning back into itself. In the sphere of being, existence was the being that had negation in it, and being was the immediate ground and element of this negation, which was, therefore, itself immediate negation. In the sphere of essence, positedness is what corresponds to existence. Positedness is equally an existence, but its ground is being as essence or as pure negativity. It is a determinateness or a negation, not as existent but immediately as sublated. Existence is only positiveness. This is the principle of the essence of existence. Positiveness stands on the one side over against existence, and over against essence on the other. It is to be regarded as the means which conjoin existence with essence, and essence with existence. If it is said a determination is only positiveness, the claim can thus have a twofold meaning, according to whether the determination is such in opposition to existence or in opposition to essence. In either meaning, existence is taken for something superior to positiveness, which is attributed to external reflection, to the subjective. In fact, however, positiveness is the superior, because as posited, existence is what it is in itself, something negative, something that refers simply and solely to the turning back into itself. For this reason, positiveness is only a positiveness with respect to essence. It is the negation of this turning back as achieved, return into itself. 2. Positiveness is not yet a determination of reflection. It is only a determinateness as negation in general. But the positing is now united with external reflection. In this unity, the latter is absolutely presupposing, that is, the repelling of reflection from itself or the positing of determinateness as its own. As posited, therefore, positedness is negation, but as presupposed it is reflected into itself, and in this way, positedness is a determination of reflection. The determination of reflection is distinct from the determinateness of being, of quality. The latter is immediate reference to the other in general. Positedness is also reference to other, but to eminently reflected being. Negation, as quality, is existent negation. Being constitutes its ground and element. The determination of reflection, on the contrary, has for this ground eminent reflectedness. Positedness gets fixed in determination precisely because reflection is self-equality in its negatedness. The latter is therefore itself reflection into itself. Determination persists here, not by virtue of being, but because of self-equality. Since the being which sustains quality is unequal to the negation, quality is consequently unequal within itself, and hence a transient moment which disappears as in the other. The determination of reflection is, on the contrary, positedness as negation. Negation, which has negatedness for its ground, is therefore not unequal to itself within itself, and hence essential rather than transient determinateness. What gives subsistence to it is the self-equality of reflection, which has the negative only as negative, as something sublated or posited. Because of this reflection into themselves, the determinations, or of reflection, appear as free essentialities, sublated in the void without reciprocal attraction or repulsion. In them, the determinateness has become entranced and infinitely fixed by virtue of the reference to itself. It is the determinate which has subjugated its transitoriness and its mere positiveness to itself. That is to say, has deflected its reflection into other, into reflection into itself. These determinations hereby constitute the determinate shine as it is in essence, the essential shine. Determining reflection is, for this reason, reflection that has exited from itself. The equality of essence with itself is lost in the negation, and negation predominates. Thus, there are two distinct sides to determination of reflection. First, reflection is positiveness, negation as such. Second, it is immanent reflection, According to the side of its positiveness, it is negation as negation. And this already is its unity with itself. But it is this unity at first, only implicitly or in itself, and immediate which sublates itself within, is the other of itself. To this extent, reflection is a determining that abides in itself. In it, essence does not exit from itself. The distinctions are solely posited, taken back into essence. But from the other side, they are not posited, but are rather reflected into themselves. Negation as negation is equality with itself, not in its other, not reflected into its non-being. 3. Now, keeping in mind that the determination of reflection is both eminently reflected reference and positiveness as well, its nature immediately becomes more transparent. For, as positiveness, the determination is negation as such, a non-being as against another, namely, as against the absolute immanent reflection, or as against essence. But as a self-reference, it is reflected within itself. This, the reflection of the determination, and that positiveness are distinct, is positiveness, its positiveness is rather the sublatedness of the determination, whereas the eminent reflectedness of it is its subsisting. Insofar as now the positiveness is at the same time immanent reflection, the determinateness of the reflection is the reference in it to its otherness. It is not a determinateness that exists quiescent, one which would be referred to an other in such a way that the referred term and its reference would be different, each something existing in itself, each a something that excludes its other and its reference to this other from itself. Rather, the determination of reflection is within it the determinate side, and the reference of this determinate side as determinate, that is, the reference to its negation. Quality, through its reference, passes over into another. Its alteration begins in its reference. The determination of reflection, on the contrary, has taken its otherness back into itself. It is positiveness. Negation which has, however, deflected the reference to another into itself, and negation which, equal to itself, is the unity of itself and its other. And only through this essentiality, it is, therefore, positiveness, negation, but as a reflection into itself, it is at the same time the sublatedness of this positiveness, infinite reference to itself. And that is going to bring us to the end of, what's this one called again? Shine. And the essence of reflection or shine. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult topic. I understand I hold some unconventional beliefs and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but it's not something I apologize for. I don't know that I have a whole lot left to add other than what was basically being said at the end was we see this as a lighter and we see this as a lighter, but they are not the same, right? The essential is that they both start fires. The particulars is the determinateness that this is a 2.5-inch square that is about a 1/2 inch wide and filled with butane with metal parts. And this one is closer to 4 inches, maybe even 5, is a good inch wide and filled with butane, right? These are the specific individual determinatenesses that separate them from each other, right? Without knowing that these start fires, if you just looked at them, you would not think that they were the same thing. The essence of them is that they start fires. The specifics of them is the differences that make them, right? The individual qualities are what make them different from the reflection, from the shine. And instead, they hold a reflection of the shine. I don't know that I can make it any clearer than that, but if you are still confused, drop it in the box. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment out of too much confusion. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow, throw me a comment. If you agree or disagree with anything that was stated, put it in the box down below. And if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If there is another work you would like to see me read or discuss, drop that in the box as well. And if you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks. Consider a membership or pick up a copy of my book. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pit State. Peace.